At the debate, it was really creepy hearing Joe Biden say it was about to be a dark winter.
We're about to go into a dark winter, and he has no clear plan, and there's no prospect that there's going to be a vaccine available for the majority of the American people before the middle of next year.
President Trump, your reaction, he says you have no plan.
I don't think we're going to have a dark winter at all. We're opening up our country.
First off, if I didn't know any better, I would think Joe Biden, most of the media, and Dr. Fauci were fear salesmen, which is odd because fear weakens our immune system and can cause cardiovascular damage, gastrointestinal problems. Fear is very bad for your body, but they have no problem just pushing fear. They also tell you it's a conspiracy theory to question Big Pharma, although Purdue Pharma recently this week is pleading guilty in an $8 billion opioid settlement. But don't question them or you're crazy. Of course, Fauci and Biden don't seem to care about people who miss their cancer screenings, people who are getting fatter, losing their jobs, suicides on the rise, domestic abuse. But besides their dark winter fear-mongering, it's pretty bizarre that if you look up Operation Dark Winter, you can find out that Dark Winter was the code name for a senior-level bioterrorist attack simulation conducted from June 22nd to June 23rd in 2001. It was designed to carry out a mock version of a covert and widespread smallpox attack on the United States. One of the groups behind it was Johns Hopkins Center. Now, of course, this is a real thing, but even just me saying this puts me at risk from being deleted or censored, because thinking for yourself, having common sense, or literally reading things that are blatantly open for everybody to read is now considered a thought crime. I mean, you can't even question the origins of this virus or how it came to be. In America, run by the tech companies, which is essentially some sort of communist technocracy where you don't have free speech anymore, you can't even question the virus. I showed a video of Bill Gates talking about how bioterrorism was a threat just a few years ago, and my video got censored. They said, well, this isn't true. I mean, he said it and I showed it. You just don't want people to think outside the box. And Luc Montagnier, who discovered HIV, also thought that this virus had a specific origin. I can't even say it, to be honest, because we live in some sort of communist Orwellian sci-fi horror movie where me reporting the news like the media claims to report the news is a thought crime offense that got my channel demonetized and got my Facebook page rigged against me. And I'm sure Instagram and YouTube are coming soon. But Operation Dark Winter, it sounds familiar. It reminds me of Event 201, which was put on by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Johns Hopkins, and the World Economic Forum. Event 201 was essentially the blueprint that they planned out last year. It was a simulation of an outbreak of a novel zoonotic coronavirus transmitted from bats to pigs to people that eventually became efficiently transmissible from person to person, leading to a severe pandemic. That's what they planned out last year, but once again, I can't even show you a clip of it. You have to watch it on YouTube. If I show you a clip, they're going to say this is a conspiracy theory, even though it literally happened. But remember, as they upend your complete life, as many people lose their job, as you can't live like a free citizen like you used to, you don't have free speech, you most likely can't go to a grocery store without a mask on, you can't do anything in this country, go to a concert, travel normally. I mean, the whole country has been upended and essentially changed. And as all that's happening, you can't even question why it's happening, how it happened, or if you agree with their reaction to it. But it's going to be a dark winter, one that you're not allowed to even question.
We're about to go into a dark winter.
But people are so dumbed down and brainwashed, they don't even question what actually happened this year. First, they forced you to stay inside with a lockdown, and you weren't even allowed to go to a beach or an outdoor park. Of course, that's horrible for your health. It led to thousands of people missing cancer treatments, obesity, all the stuff I mentioned before. It most likely had a net negative impact on America's health, of course destroyed the economy, ruined millions of jobs forever, and allowed our foreign competitors to gain an advantage on us, which could eventually lead us to not having a prosperous society. But they told you to stay indoors. Just a few months later, they forced you outdoors and wouldn't even let you to stay indoors if you had a certain business. Did anybody notice they flip-flop? Of course not. Just like Dr. Fauci flip-flopped on masks, but I can't even show you that video because if I show you that video, I got censored on Facebook, I got censored on Instagram. It's a thought crime to even show the video of Dr. Fauci earlier this year. And keep in mind, he's not new to the job. He got appointed by Ronald Reagan to his current position, so he's been there for decades studying infectious diseases. This is what he knows. He knows it very well. So well, they actually wrote a Newsweek article about it, which I also can't talk about because they censored me when I talked about that. So don't question it even though they constantly question themselves. Just go along with it and live essentially like a prisoner or a slave, right? Makes sense? Of course not, but apparently most people don't care. Act like a sheep, get treated treated like one. People also can't figure out that Peru had one of the world's strictest lockdowns, if not the strictest lockdown, and also had one of the world's worst results, deaths per capita. Sweden, on the other hand, didn't do a lockdown, didn't do a mask mandate. They're doing better than the United States. They're doing better than Italy, UK, USA, Spain, over a dozen countries, and almost 2 times as good as Peru, which had the world's strictest lockdowns. But don't use your brain, and I can't even use my brain because this video is probably going to get deleted just for not being a total moron. Of course, New York and New Jersey, both Democrat states, have the worst deaths per capita. Deaths per capita is rearranged just in case you have a larger population, so it fits the scale. New York and New Jersey are doing the worst. I talked about that in another video, and that video got censored, and they wrote a whole fact checker article just about my tweet because it went viral. Of course I told the truth. Of course in their fact checker they lied about me and libeled me, even falsely accused of doing it on a date I never did it on. I mean, these people are literally libeling me. I don't know how it is legal. Possibly it's not legal, but they don't care. They can lie, they can libel, and they don't want you to know that New York and New Jersey are still, to this day, the worst in the country deaths per capita. Just like it was when my viral tweet went out and they libeled me with the fact checker. You know who's doing a lot better? South Dakota. They're doing better than 30 states, even though they didn't do a lockdown. I went there. You can go sit down. Waitresses don't have a mask. It's like living normally in a society that's not a complete prison state. There was no astronomical outbreak there. Like I said, they're doing better than most states. Even though they hosted one of the country's largest events in Sturgis, where hundreds of thousands of people came from all over the country, didn't spread in South Dakota, and the media had to hallucinate some fake story about it just to justify why it was so bad because the numbers weren't nearly as bad as they said they were going to be. And remember Wuhan, China, where the virus allegedly came from? This is them over a month ago having a pool party without masks. So as their economy thrives, as their people live normally, you live in a more communist state than China, essentially like a prisoner, putting something on your face that the person who's in charge of telling you to do that told you just a few months ago at the height of a pandemic that it was actually counterproductive. But you're not allowed to think that anymore because that is a thought crime. You have to walk around like a muzzled dog and not even question the science behind it, even though the top experts in the country told you the opposite earlier this year. I mean, it's basic common sense though. Millions of people are reusing masks. I mean, if you go into a restaurant, they won't even let you sit down. You have to go back to your car, get your used mask, which is probably dirty, put it on your face for 5 seconds and then sit down. What's the science behind 5 seconds putting on a mask just to sit down at a table and then take it off? Of course, there is no science behind it. It's an overreaction. It's a complete power grab. It's essentially slave conditioning with something that's so scientifically laughable, wearing a mask for 5 seconds until you sit down. And the amount of used masks and dirty masks that people are putting on their face, which is essentially like taking a dirty napkin and sticking it right over your mouth and your nose. As a germaphobe, I think you guys are disgusting, which is why I wear this helmet to mock how absurd this all is. And I take the old scale approach of working out, taking care of myself, and eating good instead of slurping down high fructose corn syrup pharmacy pills and getting wildly obese while screaming at everybody else to wear a mask. I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe that's healthy, but ask Dr. Fauci. I'm not an expert, okay? And on top of all that, Joe Biden said he wouldn't close down the country. He'd close down the virus.
Mr. Vice President, you suggested you would support new shutdowns if scientists recommended it. What do you say to Americans who are fearful that the cost of shutdowns, the impact on the economy, the higher rates of hunger, depression, domestic and substance abuse outweighs the risk of exposure to the virus?
What I would say is I'm going to shut down the virus, not the country. It's his ineptitude that caused the country to have to shut down in large part. Most
of the locked down countries haven't gotten rid of the virus. In fact, I would say Sweden is doing better by not locking down and not having mask mandates if you look at their charts. But somehow Joe Biden's going to magically just get rid of the virus and not close down the country, even though they're hinting at mask mandates for at least another year with no target in mind because they gave you multiple targets, moved the goalposts, and nobody seemed to care. First, they told you they're just going to temporarily slow the spread so hospitals don't get overwhelmed. That didn't happen in most states. And then they moved and started counting deaths. And then when that got lower, they started counting cases. And now it's just a counting game where they don't even have to give you a target goal. They could just tell you wear a mask for another year and a half, and people are stupid enough to do it and believe it and not even question it. But I understand why, because if you do question it, you might lose your job, you might lose your social media, you might not be able to feed your family. So welcome to communism, folks. I hope you're prepared for a dark winter, because as long as nobody gets held accountable for what I would consider consider crimes against humanity, then they're going to keep on coming. Why would they stop? I mean, you're not allowed to investigate it. You're not allowed to talk about it. You just need to bow down, do what they say, and watch as they completely reshape and reform humanity. And people like the World Economic Forum founder writes books about it. The Great Reset tells you exactly what he's doing, tells you exactly how he feels politically and socially, which is not how America feels, which is not what we voted for, but they don't care what you voted for. These tech CEOs, global communist-minded leftists, they don't care what you want. They don't care what works. They don't care if you lose your job. They don't care if you miss your cancer screening. They don't care if you get fatter. They don't care if domestic abuse and child abuse rises. They don't care if their mistakes are so big that they create a third world country in which millions of people suffer and our public health declines instead of goes up because too much government overreach doesn't work. And public health bureaucrats swallowing up what we're allowed to say on media and swallowing up our entire government, essentially overriding the president of the United States, this is not good. This is not healthy. And I'll tell you, at the end of the year, look at the total deaths in our country. See if they're not high. See if they're at normal rates. And then ask yourself, are you paying attention? Do you care? Can you even question anything? I don't know what to tell you, but I'm not living like a slave or a prisoner for the rest of my life. And I would hope that you don't want to either. And if it does happen and people don't figure it out, then I guess I'll have to find a state like South Dakota that isn't completely brainwashed into self-sabotage and a fear-mongering depression slave state where you're not even allowed to communicate and you're living like an Orwellian nightmare. Plastic barriers, masked waitresses, even though the data shows in Sweden and in states that don't do this, that it's not that bad. In fact, it's better. South Dakota doing better than most Democrat states that are shutting down. Sweden, who didn't do the mask mandate or the lockdown, doing better than some of the world's strictest lockdowns. They just keep screaming science, 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 while ignoring the science and data. And if I show you the science and data that's inconvenient to them, they ban, censor, and delete like authoritarian fascists. But this is the world we live in. I'm used to it by now. So God bless you. I appreciate you. Have a beautiful week. I'll be back with more videos. And if you'd like to support my content, I have patreon.com/raretalk. These hats are sold out, but the black God is Great hats are in. I've heard that the pink God is Great hats are coming back in, so if you ordered one of those, it should be shipped out within the next week or two. Sorry for the delay, they're selling out. I have these shirts to fight censorship. This long sleeve right here that says Common Sense Censored. This t-shirt that says Is Thinking Illegal Yet? I have this God is Great tee, which is very, very trendy. That's a great way to support and have some fresh apparel because unfortunately a lot of these tech companies are cracking down on me and making it harder for me to make ad revenue on Facebook. I can't do it at all, but it's all good. I don't care. These liars, these losers can cheat, brainwash society, and subvert humanity, but they're not going to stop my hustle. So have a good one. I'll be back soon.
I just make another deal. You don't understand the system. Yeah, I'm about to paint a picture. Yeah, media control the mind and censor everything that ever goes against them. Yeah, why they pin you as a victim? Yeah, so you always stay dependent. Yeah, then they tell you they gon' raise the taxes, help you out with everything you give them.